inside joke.
Yeah. That's me. An intro to Peter then. We're just doing an introduction. Start into first chapter next time. So, introduction to Peter after closing out Hebrews last week. In this series of commentaries on Peter, we will be piggybacking on numerous new commentaries again, as well as an old one or two. As promised earlier, we will be using unsweetened commentary from the bombastic and volcanic Martin Luther this time, for reasons that will soon become very clear to you. This commentary was originally a series of 500-year-old sermons that were only translated into English about 160 years ago by, who's this guy? Ezra Gillett. I expect you'll enjoy this Reformation giant, Martin Luther, who was light years ahead of Martin Luther King, who we celebrated not too long ago, a giant less subtle than Calvin and less subtle than Trump even. Also, we will be using a short and sweet commentary from Edward A. Blum, published around 1994. Following this commentary, this Edwin A. Blum became the general editor of the Holman Christian Standard Bible, which was known as HCSB a while ago. It's a well-respected Bible that tries to strike a balance between functional and formal equivalence. That is a Bible that is now presumptuously known as the Christian Standard Bible.
After what Beth Moeller uses apparently in her studies.
Now known as the Christian Standard Bible after it dropped its unbalanced obsession, over using the name Yahweh instead of Lord. Tom Schreiner, who was one of our commentators in Hebrews, is now the co-chair of that CSB committee. And right away we will see changes that Schreiner introduced into the 2017 edition of that CSB. And naturally we will be using a commentary that Tom Schreiner wrote using the old 1984 NIV as his main squeeze. He used the 2001 ESV and the 2003 HCSB as well. And as usual, we will show you how our 2011 NIV stacks up against them. Anyway, Schreiner ranks third in the best commentaries list, which you can go to if you hit that link. Perhaps only third because it is not the most academic or the most pastoral. It does not include the most whacked out ideas or include the most comforting fluff. On the whole, it is a well-balanced conservative commentary. We will also be using... Oh, wait a minute. Let's show you that commentary. We have it here. Hey. Oh. There is Schreiner for you that we'll be going through. Fun. Yeah. And we will also be using a Tyndale commentary by Wayne Grudem. Yep, Wayne Grudem. A much more pastoral approach. Here we go. Wayne Grudem. Lovely, huh? Yeah, there's Wayne Grudem, which we'll be going through as well. A much more pastoral approach from a semi-charismatic, which means he's kind of zealous. It's not short either. As Tim Challies thought it's short, it's not really short. Certainly not as short as this book I just picked up here. And incidentally, it's upside down too. Oh, wow. Oh, and we'll be getting into this a little bit in a chapter or two, because Andrew Nazelli is actually referenced here as endorsing this book because it speaks to conscience and Holiness Nazelli, who will be here in a few weeks. Now, so Grudem is currently ranked as 5th on the list of best commentaries, and Tom Schreiner cites him often, mostly positively. And for your information, Grudem was the general editor of the ESV Bible, a Bible that is about as dated as the HCSB, but a little more respected due to being a little more formal, a more majestic syntax as originally written. Now, we are using this somewhat dated commentary of Grudem's. It was way back in 88 that he wrote this one. Just to fact check Schreiner, make sure Schreiner gets things right. And we are using this since good old D.A. Carson recommended buying this for one particular interpretation that we'll be studying, saying that that interpretation was worth the price of the book alone, and we will see that. Along with that, we will be using the textual commentary of Philip Comfort again, although Schreiner appears to nail all the significant textual variants. But here we go, on with the intro. Oh, flip that one over. First off, we have our commentators discussing the authorship of Peter. Always a sticky wicket, it seems. With all the lily-livered liberals saying, "We do not know." The standard academic waffling that buys them tenure. Grudem dispenses with those liberals in about 9 pages, while Schreiner patiently takes 15 to dispense with them. Commentators like Achmeyer and Eliot, with his fictive Peter. And Schreiner takes even more time on the authorship of 2 Peter, dissembling Bauckham, Richard Bauckham, and his transparent fiction theory of 2 Peter, with a hyperbolic Dunn, even being so bold as to say that the writings of Luther are equal to or even better than what we find in 2 Peter. We will see. Luther seems to like 2 Peter a whole lot. In exasperation, Schreiner wonders why such extreme Lutheranism of those cynics fail to see the message of grace in 2 Peter. That life in the Spirit seems to lead to a changed life, and he wonders why that extreme Lutheranism of theirs exhibits such a lack of grace. Perhaps even lacking the gospel of grace that his wife, yes, Schreiner's wife, appears to have introduced him to, as we can read in the preface here. Oh, let's read the preface for a moment. Preface saying, my co-heir in the grace of life to Diane. And he explains that a little bit later, how she introduced him to Christ, which kind of relates to the first verse of our 3rd chapter, as you will see. So one wonders what deprived grace that Schreiner would be exhibiting otherwise, or what I would be exhibiting otherwise for that matter. Now, Schreiner also attacks Tübingen. You remember we referred to Tübingen back with Hebrews? He attacks Tübingen right off the bat, slamming that alleged higher place of learning for majoring on the minors, for the great emphasis on the minor differences between Peter and Paul, minor differences, despite Peter giving a full endorsement of Paul towards the end of his 2nd letter. Nor were those writing differences all that great. After all, they had the same general editor. We keep talking about editors here, right? First, same general editor in this case for some of their writings. Silas, also known as Silvanus, worked with both of them, both with Peter and Paul, on Peter's 1st letter at any rate. And strangely enough, Peter's writing style changed somewhat for his 2nd letter after reading Paul's stuff, no doubt. And changed after reading Jude's stuff, no doubt. Like that stylistic change actually disproves the authorship of Peter somehow. Peter was addressing newborn babies in his 1st letter, as we can read in chapter 2, as well as being pastoral with fellow elders in 5:1. Whereas he was addressing false prophets, false teachers, and scoffers in his 2nd letter. Less subtle language, like Luther. Different strokes for different folks. So not necessarily different authors. Now, 1 Peter was likely written around 60 AD. Likely written in Rome. with the follow-up letter of 2 Peter, likely written just a few years later, again from Rome, perhaps with the assistance of Paul. As mentioned earlier, written just before Nero went ballistic and wasted Peter and Paul in Rome. Yeah, wasted. Written for places, this was written for places that Peter had visited earlier that were exclusive to Peter's ministry. Places that needed his particular brand of encouragement. Places like Bithynia that refused entry to Paul and Timothy, as we read in those references. But as regards our primary theme to Peter here, well, it could quite well be hang in there again. Yeah, Schreiner says the purpose of this letter, yeah, there we go. The purpose of this letter is to encourage believers to stand fast. Sounds like a whole lot like our hang in there theme of Hebrews, right? Which was a pet theme of Schreiner's as well. And he wrote a book about it. Yet let's pursue a different theme this time. Yeah, a different theme. Let's pursue a holier theme. As challenging as that is. Let's pursue, a holier theme, like a conscious theme. A holier theme that gets mentioned frequently by our author and by our commentators, and a concept that gets implied even more frequently. Not only that, but merely encouraging believers to hang in there seems like a moot point for Peter, since Peter has this overwhelming confidence that God will do what God will do. Peter has a certain confidence that if God elects you, then you will remain elected. Of course, all Arminians will dispute that election. They will dispute that irresistible calling on specific individuals, claiming that calling on your life is merely a general and ineffectual calling, entirely up to your sovereign free will. Yet Luther is about to crush your sovereign free will. He is about to erase that foolish thought from your incredibly pliable mind, just as he attempted that with his wooden-headed nemesis named Erasmus. A thoroughly biblical crushing that is utterly hilarious in Luther's 17th century book titled Bondage of the Will, that you can see there. I should have brought my Bondage of the Will book. Just utterly hilarious. You would enjoy it immensely. The language in there is tremendous. And there's also a thoroughly philosophic crushing that may be found in Jonathan Edwards' Freedom of the Will book. It's a different cover page there, isn't it? Yeah, it's a different cover page. Thoroughly philosophic crushing of free will in this book, which was about a century later. It is a totally leak-tight crushing that has not been logically contested even to this very day, although it is very boring. Boring, totally leak-tight, from probably the best philosopher America ever put out. For something more audible and pastoral, you might want to check out one of the many sermons by Stephen Lawson. He will crush your free will as well. Which leads to the primary purpose of this highly offensive crushing. The purpose being the causing of our highly pliable will to do his unchanging will, to walk in enhanced holiness, which is otherwise known as sanctification. An enhanced holiness that we are fully capable of, having been sprinkled with the blood of Jesus. Oh, and I brought a mascot too, for our holiness. Oh, what would this be today? Well, okay, what's this one? A mascot for our holiness. Oh. plain old bagel. Oh, it's got